I'd like to call the Carson City Historic Resources Commission to order on Thursday, May 14th, 2015 at 5:30 p.m. Call to order and determination of quorum.
Chairperson Block.
Here.
Vice Chair Drews. Commissioner Dickey.
Here.
Commissioner Hayes.
Here.
Commissioner Darney.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Spilda. A quorum is present.
Great, thank you. On to item B, public comments. Member of the public who wish to address the commission may approach the podium at this time to speak on matters relevant to or within the authority of the Historic Resources Commission, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. Being that we have lots of public tonight, is there anybody that would like to have any public comment at this point in time? All right, seeing none, on to item C, action on approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Motion and second. Do we have any comment on the motion? Any public comment on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Now on to item D, modification of agenda. Agenda management notice. Items on the agenda may be taken out of order. The public body may combine two or more agenda items for consideration, and the public body may remove an item from the agenda or delay discussion relating to an item on the agenda at any time. Mr. Plemmel.
Thank you. I don't have any recommended changes to the agenda tonight.
Okay, great. On to item E, disclosures. Any members of the commission that may wish to explain any contact with the public regarding an item on the agenda or business of the commission. Do we have any disclosure? Okay, on to item F, public hearing matters. F1, HRC 15-043 for possible action to approve a request from Robin Laguza to replace 13 non-functioning single-hung windows and 2 picture windows on property zone single-family 6000 SF6 located at 506 West Spear Street, APN 003-232-01. Mr. Plemmel.
Thank you, and good evening. And for the record, I'll start tonight by noting Lee Plemmel, Community Development Director. Obviously, Susan's not with us tonight, your usual staff person, so you'll bear with me tonight. In going through these, all of these items on the agenda tonight, Kathy Green in our office has picked up a little bit of the slack for us and has gone through the HRC applications and prepared the staff reports, and I've reviewed them, and so you have the staff reports in your packet. For this first item, as you've read into the record, replacement of windows, this is a property on the corner of West Spear and Phillips Street on the site, on the vicinity map up there. Again, zooming in on the property. This is a house that was constructed in 1934, but it was constructed in Elko County, and it wasn't until it was moved to this site in 1949. And the applicant is proposing to replace the windows that are non-functioning with a similar single-hung window. We have this elevation looking north, and then this is the other side of the house. Again, the report's attached. I'll just keep my presentation brief on that. Be happy to answer questions and have have the applicant answer questions for you.
Okay, great. Do we have any questions for staff? Robin, would you like to come up and state your name for the record and tell us a little bit about your project, please?
It's Robin Laguza. And what else?
And just tell us about your project.
Oh, I've been living in the house for 3 years and looking for people to repair the windows and can't find anybody. And they haven't been working in 3 years. So I think I would like to replace them.
Okay, any questions for Robin? Any comments?
Actually, I need a comment from construction. Can anybody take up the slack and work on old windows and make them function? I mean, I used someone when I remodeled my house years ago in the district.
The issue with working on them not only is finding somebody, but the ones that have the cords and the pulleys don't have any access, so it would involve cutting holes in all my walls. And then there's 4 windows that have this weird spring system that I had a guy look at, and he couldn't even find parts for it. He had never seen that kind of setup before.
Go ahead, Don.
I went by and looked, and, you know, I hate the window thing that comes up on this board. I just hate it. I know you like it, but I hate it. The house has some old windows and then windows that have been replaced in the past. That's why we have the picture window, the sliders, because they didn't make those at that particular time. You can get the cords and you can get the weights, and you can rebuild those from the inside, but it gets pretty labor intensive on those. And I've looked at her windows. Some of those are really shot. I mean, they've been, it's not that she's going to repair those easily. And I think that what she's recommended doing, and you correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, she wants to pull the windows out and maintain the existing size of the window, leave the casements on the inside, leave the casements on the outside. And we seem to come up against these windows quite a bit about the vinyl, the fiberglass, the metal clad, the original. And there are so many different types of windows that have been put in through the district, a lot of vinyl windows, that when somebody comes to us with this approach, I kind of appreciate that. And secondly, and I want to point out, she doesn't have to get a permit for these. So the only way we would have found out is like the poor lady from San Jose that happened to be replacing them, and I think you had mentioned that, you know, hey, you can't put those kind of windows in. She doesn't have to get a permit, so she's coming here of her free will
Well,
to
I
have
live
us.
across the street from him. You would notice.
So look at him turn red. Look at him turn red. So to be honest, I don't have a problem with what she's trying to do. She's trying to mimic the windows that are in there. We can't go back to the past. And like I say, she has some older windows, and she has some windows from probably the 60s, 70s that she's trying to replace with like windows. I guess if you wanted to take it back to historic, as in our ordinance, you would try to mimic a window of a proportion and style to other homes within the area. But I can't see how we can do that here, where she's just trying to replace what everybody's been looking at for how long, you know? So I have no problem with what you want to do.
I'll add to that if I could. When we kind of talked about this briefly, that the vinyl windows were the concern, but these are fiberglass that they're proposing here, which are far superior than a vinyl window. And the colors don't have the same problems of shrinking and fading and things that the vinyl do. But this building, I walked around it, and it's kind of, like you said, a hodgepodge of various types and scales of windows and makes and years. And I think what she's trying to do is going to tie it all together and, you know, give some cohesion to the whole project. And I think it will improve what's there rather than disprove. The only thing stipulation I make, though, is if you take the old windows out, that you might make them available parts-wise for anybody else in the neighborhood that we've done before, that
How
may
would I
be
do that?
restoration. Contact us, and
Big garage.
yeah, we have people that want to restore windows, and the parts of window that you might discard might help somebody else save one of theirs, so.
I think if I'm correct, though, you're not going to take the casing apart, which would expose the weights in that are left in the wall. So they would only
Yeah,
be
but we'd have
available
the
if she
gla-
has a fire.
We'd have the glass, too, if people want to replace, because I know,
Sashes.
and the glass cracks in the older windows, so there'd be the glass that people could use if they wanted.
Don, just so you know, after she gets it done, you know, before the windows go in, I can get the weights out. There's an inspection cover on the outside. There's 2 bolts. And believe it or not, I can replace 2 sash cords in about an hour now. As you've seen, all the windows across the street in my house are all now functioning. Jim D. from Woodworking Specialties, he can build new frames, he can build windows, he can do all that stuff. I have extra weights because we had to custom make some weights for some of mine. If you know what you're doing, it's not too bad. So the example in my house for new windows, and of course they're all 6'6", except for the front 2 that are 1867 out of my office. It was about $28,000 to $35,000 to replace them with double pane low E windows. So our alternative is, after we rebuilt all the windows, they work and they're loose and they leak. We put vinyl shutters on the inside, and the vinyl shutters cost me $4,500 through Bill Gio in Reno. And so every time the wind blows, I open up my vinyl shutters on the inside and I vacuum out all the places and everything, but that saved me a ton of money. So if you want to save money and rebuild some of the ones that have weights, I know how to do it. Jim and I, we did 6 windows in 2 days, and that was a learning process. And I think we could have done those same windows with the 4 cords on each window in probably about 6 hours. The springs are a different story. Sometimes with the springs, I was talking to Dick Whiffley today, and on Marilyn Harper's thing, they had windows that used to have weights in them, but none of the weights were in there. They were all springs, and the spring windows get kind of harder. But the ones that have sash cords and pulleys, I can help you with that as well, or, get you in contact.
There's no panel to get access to where
It's, what it is you have a stop between your inside window and your outside window, and down below, there's an inspection cover that's about this high up, and they get so painted over. And usually what you can do is find the top, there's barely a line, and there's one screw that goes up at an angle. You undo the screw, you pull it up, and it's got a mortise in the bottom that you just kind of pull that chunk out, and it gives you free access to the weight. So basically what you have to do is pop your stop from the inside, pull out the bottom window, and then your other stops, you pull out your top window, and you can have access to all that stuff. And
I'd
so
be
it's-
interested, I'd like to get
Because-
approval if I can for the fiberglass, but then I'd be interested in getting that guy's name and having him come look.
And if I
see
can
what
save
we
you
could
money,
do.
because I know you're gonna spend a ton of money on windows, I'd be more than happy to do that. And the vinyl shutters, they're about a 1/4 inch thick. They don't look bad from the outside, and they also do have an R value, and you've got that little pocket of air in between there, so.
Well, what I had was like interior storm windows, and those
Uh-huh.
worked really well, too.
Now, we could probably get your windows working, because the interior storm windows, you do have that barrier. So the storm windows, whoever put them in, you can get your money back from the cost, from the energy savings. But if you replace all the windows, as according to Old House Magazine, you probably won't recoup those costs for the new windows ever, as far as efficiency goes. So, if you want help and guide and all that stuff, and I can do that. And at the same token, we are talking old windows, and a lot of the windows where the mortise comes together, there's a wood pin in there. Sometimes those are missing, and sometimes you can just throw a little tiny screw up there, and Jim is just a master at that, so, we can
Yeah, I'd be interested in talking
help you
to
do
him.
that. Okay? So what's,
Well, meanwhile, we can vote on this particular item. I think you've planned a good job. I just wanted to encourage some thought about these sorts of things, so whatever works.
Yeah, I'll talk to him
You know.
first.
oh,
see
and I
what
have
we
no problem with the windows being replaced. I mean, we have a hard time with that at times at the board, and when Mr. Brenneman said, look at the windows in the Bliss, and, I drive by there every day and I look at them, and from the street, I can't tell a difference, and I'm inside his house at the Historical Society, and I'm standing about 15, or probably about 10 feet away, and I got up real close, and I could tell that they weren't the old windows. I really like the wavy glass in there, but I mean, that's a prime example that when these windows are replaced, if they do it right and use the same moldings on the outside like Don's talking about, it's really hard to tell unless you're right up close and personal.
Can I make a motion? Oh,
Do we have any public comment? And sorry about my porch, it should be done in the next 2 weeks. On this item, I'd like to entertain a motion.
I move to approve HRC-15-043, a request from property owner Robin Lazuza to replace 13 single-hung windows and 2 picture windows on property zone single-family 6,000 located at 5006 West Spear Street, APN 003-232-01, based on the standards and guidelines for rehabilitation, Carson City Historic District guidelines, and with Historic Resource Commission policies.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Do we have any public comment on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Robin,
you.
thank you so much for coming
And
to
I'll
us.
get in touch with you over the weekend and get the.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
You bet. Now we're on to,
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself for this item. I'm a non-vote.
so are you going to go out and stand in the rain or anything? Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Darney. Item F2, HRC 15-044, for possible action to approve a request from Robert Darney owner Adams 308 North Curry LLC, for the construction of a 2-story duplex with 3 single-car garages and a building of 7 single-car garages on property zoned downtown mixed-use DTMU and residential office RO located at 308 North Curry Street, APN 003-228-01. Mr. Plumel.
Thank you. You've given the good description in reading that of what the application is for. This is a project that involves it actually involves a parcel where the west half of the parcel is in the historic district, and that's the portion on which this proposed development is going to occur. And here, looking at the aerial and the site plan where it is, the eastern half is the existing building known formerly as the Citibank building that's currently under renovation by the property owner. It's set between Telegraph and Proctor Streets, and between Curry and Nevada Streets is the whole property. The parking lot on the west side of the property there is the half of the property that's in the historic district, and that is where the proposed duplex and the parking garages are proposed to be built. Just a few quick photos of the area. I'm sure you're all very familiar with this area. This is looking towards the south with the old building to the left there. So this is the location where the proposed development would be, and kind of looking back the other direction to the north across the site to the context of the existing buildings to the north there. That's one of the properties Jed was referring to earlier before the meeting. The Marilyn Harper's house, right? Okay, and she owns that again. She owns that now. This is from the site looking to the west, so a little context of the existing buildings across the street there. Just these last 2 photos with this one, and then moving down the street a little bit, see some of the existing buildings in the district there across to the west. So these are the elevation drawings that are in your packet, just having on the screen for the public to see and for Rob to use in his presentation. Rob's also handed out some additional sketches of how the development would fit into the context of the renovation of the Citibank building. This here, just real quick, going through a couple slides. This is the building with the duplex and garage. This is the building looking, the upper part there would be what would be seen from the interior parking lot side, and the lower elevation there would be the portion of the building facing Nevada Street. On the next, and this is again elevations of the same building. And on the top there would be the portion of the building facing Telegraph Street, with the lower portion there facing the Citibank building. I know, is there another term so I can stop? Is there, besides city, what are you referring it to now?
Right now, we're referring to it as 308 North Curry.
308 North Curry, okay. And then finally, this is a detached garage building that would serve as parking for the property in general, and this would be located facing with the east elevation facing Nevada Street, and then of course the other elevations there. And I think that concludes the slides that I have in presentation. You have the staff report. I do want to note with this that you have the site plan. I don't have the site plan up on there, but there will be some other approvals involved with this once they go through the process. I think Rob has indicated to me they're going to take the approvals for this building and the other building together as might be applicable for special use permits or variances for setback. I think where these are proposed now, location-wise, in the residential office district, they would require a variance for the setbacks from the front property line. So that would be also, your approval would be subject to any of those types of approvals as recommended in the conditions of approval. So I'll conclude and turn it over to Rob with that, be available for questions.
Okay, Mr. Darney and Mrs. McKenzie, welcome.
That's my point. Okay.
Please state your name for the record.
Maya McKenzie, Chief Professional Officer, Hoppin May Adams Foundation.
Rob Darney, architect. Just kind of give a rundown of what we're
I'm sure most of you are familiar with a lot of the activities that the Help and May Adams Foundation is doing, but just for those who aren't and for the audience, first of all, thank you, commissioners, for letting us appear here tonight. Secondly, the Hop and May Adams Foundation is a Carson City-based charitable foundation that is focused on helping improve Carson City through educational and career enhancement, as well as other community development programs. One of the things the foundation chose to do was to take a look at some of the empty buildings downtown or underutilized buildings downtown and look to renovate them, all within keeping the spirit of the downtown master plan in mind and trying to honor its intent. So we have recently completed the renovation of 111 West Proctor Street. We put in a business incubator. It's on the corner of Carson and Proctor Street. Rob was actually the architect on that project as well. And we have a business incubator in there. We have 8 tenants. These are 8 startup businesses, and they are all technology, software-based businesses that are going to be growing up in Carson City, hiring Carson City people, and then graduating out to the community. The other project we are just finishing is across the street. It's now known as the Lake Tahoe Brewing Company. We just finished a major renovation on that project as well. And we will be completing the renovation on the back part of that building this summer. We're going to put in a student-run coffee house. So it'll be a fundraising, a business dedicated to helping support programs at Carson High School that include the newly launched, what we launched, the Entrepreneur Club at the high school, the culinary program, and as well as other programs such as Future Business Leaders of America and other programs. So the coffee house, all of its profits will go back into helping our community. So the next project we're launching into is what is referred to formally as the Citibank building, or we call it 308 North Curry Street. We will give it a name once we get all the approvals for all the planning that we want to do, once we know what we can move forward with. Our intention is to, again, honor the downtown master plan. Our intention is to have that be a mixed-use building. It will be retail on the bottom, offices in the middle, and apartments on the top side. And it's really trying to keep a thriving downtown, getting people to live and work and play in our downtown sector. The intended apartments, and it's part of what Lee referred to as these all need to be subject to approvals, will be, ideally, these will be people, individuals, young couples, maybe young families, but people who want to live there. We don't want these to be second homes for people or places that legislators come for 4 months every 2 years. We want this to be places that people are really actively using. And part of that is our appreciation that people who are actively living somewhere want to be able to park their car in a structure so that it remains safe. So then we start to get into the parking lot, which is why we are here tonight. So our intention is to create parking spaces that are in keeping with the neighborhood, but also give our tenants a place to park somewhere safely. Just so you know the history of the design of this structure, we had originally hired a different architecture firm to help us with the renovation of this building, and they came up with a design that was very much in keeping with the original look of the building, which was a 1960s type look. And while it was very attractive, we were getting feedback from people who had seen it that it didn't feel right for downtown Carson City. Since we are focused on helping the community, we decided to have a downtown charrette, and this was actually, ironically, it was 1 year ago today. We had our downtown charrette. We invited all of Carson City community to come down and take a look at that architectural rendering versus one that Rob Darney had done, which was in keeping with the downtown master plan. It had more of a early 1920s, turn of the century look rather than the 1960s architecture. And over 84% of the viewers preferred the look that Rob Darney had come up with, which is in keeping with the whole neighborhood downtown. So part of what you're seeing here tonight is Rob taking that approved look by the Carson City community, and he's bringing that into the parking lot for the parking structures. Is there anything else? Okay.
Pretty good. I'll continue on with that a little bit. Can you flip back to the aerial, maybe, of the site? I know you don't have the site plan, probably. Right there, that's good. So like Lee was describing, that west half of the property is in the historic district, and it's also the undeveloped half of the project, which right now is a very dilapidated parking lot that has been around since 1964 as such. It initially came up when we were going to do the apartments that you need parking for the tenants of the apartments. And in that case, in most cases, it's covered parking of some sort, which all of us frowned on, including the public, having parking type shade structures rather than individual garages. So we started looking more and leaning towards individual garages for each tenant. But that became an issue of how do you do that without making one long building with 12 garages. We have 12 separate single-car garages in this project. So what we did was we needed something to buffer the scale of our new building, which is fine on the Curry Street side because we have all the commercial, but we have a very distinct residential feel on that west side. And we wanted to bring that scale down, so we're using these parking garages, 2 structures, to help us reduce that scale as we come west, so that the furthest west and furthest south building, which will be in the bottom left corner, right here, that's a single story only, garages only structure. It has, I believe, 7 single-car garage bays in it. Plus, there's some storage rooms within that. They're oversized garages, so the tenants have room for their car plus some storage. The north end, right in here, we have 3 garages plus 2 two-bedroom apartments incorporated into those, and that's 2 stories, and that helps us kind of step up to our main building and helps me create a nice frontage along here. With all the commercial activity here, we get a nice blend down going into the more residential aspect of the neighborhood. The rendering that you see on the cover of the 3-dimensional drawings shows that turret portion of the apartment. That's right on the corner right there. So that rendering you're looking at is if you were standing here looking towards that building. We've had some comments from planning about the parking garages, which way the doors face. When we first started, obviously the easiest thing to do is face all the garages to the street, but that wasn't going to be a good thing architecturally, having garage doors all lined up. But facing them all in to not have garage doors on the outside created nothing but asphalt on the inside corridor. We didn't want to have just one big yard in this area here of all asphalt. So what we decided to do is kind of break that up. So we get 7 garage doors facing into the project and 5 garage doors facing to the street, which is pretty typical around the neighborhood of individual garages. Have one garage poking out here or there that's real close to the street. So it's kind of in keeping. If you look at that rendering, they tend to blend in fairly well. It allows us to spread the landscaping out a lot more through the project so that we don't have building and then landscaping. We have it more of a mix and more of a cohesive design. And that's it, pretty much the project in a nutshell. We're open to lots of suggestions. We haven't got into very detail yet of colors and certain materials. These 2 buildings, are predominantly going to be horizontal wood lap siding, probably either an LP lap or even a cedar siding. We have some stucco stone or some Colorado or cultured stone veneers to give it some trim. The roof up on the top is, this matches roofing that we're doing up on the top of the 3rd floor of the main building, so it ties the 2 buildings together, and that'll be a true standing seam metal roof. Not the big wide ones you see or the corrugated type. That'll be a true standing seam. On the bottom where we have rock, we'll probably do a corrugated roof down here, because on the other building next to it where we have brickwork, a lot of brick, we use quite a bit of the corrugated roofing also, which has also been used in a lot of buildings across the street and throughout that neighborhood. We'll have the windows are going to be a aluminum clad wood, probably either a Pella or a Anderson product. The garage doors will be a carriage style or design. They'll probably be steel insulated doors rather than true wood because of maintenance and longevity. But they'll have a carriage style to them with exposed brackets and hinges and things like that. And we'll have quite a bit of architectural detail around the eaves with some dentiles or corbels. And we have some bracketry here and there. We have on the north side of this building, Lee, can you pop the next elevation? Back one. There you go. One unit enters from the ground level on Nevada Street, and it's a 2-story apartment. The other unit is up here only, and it's a 1-story apartment above the garages and is accessed on an outside railing that will use probably a wrought iron railing that matches other stuff in the neighborhood. Probably be a fancier design finial type railing posts. Something to stay within the western theme of the main building. Any questions?
I have a question on the metal roof on the top. Is it going to kind of emulate what's on the Laxalt building?
Similar.
Kind of their,
A true standing seam, so that the seams will be
About a-
narrow, not wide,
about a foot apart or?
about 15, 16 inches. I
Okay.
believe. That currently is drawn at 16 inches, so that's pretty accurate.
Okay, anybody have any comments before I go on my rant?
Yeah, I got a couple. I wanted to wait till I got my rant over with. I had one question for you, Rob. On the apartment on the lower level on the corner, that's going to have to be ADA adaptable, isn't it?
Not
building
necessarily,
B type?
because it's the overall project, it's on one building site. We have 8 other units that are serviced by elevator,
Okay.
so I don't believe so.
So the lower level, which by code says a building type B? I was just
Right.
wondering, because you're close on your setbacks, which
Right.
doesn't bother me, but when you have to start making, start to
I
address.
believe I'm able to,
ADA.
I think I'm only going to have 2 of the units be type B units,
Okay.
and they're going to be on
I'm
the
just
third floor,
curious,
accessed
because
by
I didn't want to
elevator.
see
Yeah.
you come back for
No,
all of
right.
that stuff.
Right.
And then secondly, I like it. I've told you before that I like what's going on. And I had one question for you in the garage doors, if they're going to be metal. And the only thing I'd like to know is, I know that you want the durability of the metal without the wood, but would you consider a fiberglass door that more emulates the wood?
Oh,
The
absolutely.
texture and
Yeah.
feel, and you still have the same type of maintenance that you'd have with the metal too.
Yeah, we just don't want to use actual wood because
Right, yeah, and I
several
agree with
face
you.
west and they'll
Yeah.
be destroyed in a couple of years.
I
But
have
yes,
so-
a fiberglass product would probably
Okay.
be the ideal.
I have a couple more in a minute, but I'll let him.
Just while we're on garage doors, though, I have a west-facing, 2 garage doors in the district, and they're wood, sort of like layers. They're insulated, I think. I kind of look a lot like the original doors on the original garage. And it's 10 years later now, and the wear and tear is minimal. So
Yeah.
just to give some perspective on that.
And we considered that. One of the considerations I took was that these are rentals, so that they're probably going to take a little more abuse than private owned. So we want to be able to replace them, and we may only
What does that
replace
mean? Do
one, not
do renters
7 or not
kick
12.
garage doors or just stand there and push the button, make it go up and down, up and down, up and down, just to watch
So
it?
something,
How do you
we're gonna
abuse a
select
garage door?
something that has the probability of being available 10 years later. That's
My
kind of
point is,
important.
I think it's still doable in wood. I mean, I guess, yeah, wood wears.
Sure.
But I don't know. Lots of things get broken with renters,
Yeah.
all types of material.
I do just have 2 more comments before you go. I know some of this is going to start to move into what planning is going to deal with. And, I'd like to try to stay away from that, but I'll have some comments in a few minutes. But one of the things, when we talk about the materials you're using, like the standing seam roof, I kind of go back to, and I want to thank Lee for putting this in here, 5.27 guidelines for new construction. New construction should look new and reflect the technology, building materials, and design ideas of the present era. And I think that's important with what we're trying to do here. It's not like we're trying to take, and I'm just using it as an example. We don't have to use a wood door because I have a better product today, by the guidelines that we have. So I think that where we can use those, the standing seam roof, rather than, I like your idea of the corrugated eyebrows, but where it's up on the top, we have a better material and a better application, better technology, and I think that we should allow you to use that. But it still keeps in with the theme of your building. I look at these and I start to see a little bit of a Park City thing, or Virginia City years ago, and I kind of like that. It's very handsome. So Now I'm done for a few minutes.
Just a few details that I wanted to call out, and have we used cultured stone in the historic district before?
Oh, sure.
We have?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Thin brick. We're also on the adjacent building, it's part of this.
It
We'll
is
have
there.
some more of this same rock, and also thin brick, which
Okay.
is real brick, but it's just a thinner, so it's a weight issue for us structurally.
Sure. Yeah.
Commissioner Dilly, if I just point out, the new brewery that they just finished,
Yes.
facing Carson Street, you have both cultured stone and thin brick that they've used on
Thin
that.
brick.
So you can see both of those. Those are synthetic stones.
And the project they just finished with the State Museum was cultured stone, which is where we got that idea.
Yeah, they make it look really good now. But as you get more developed, I'd be curious to see the color and the texture of it when that further comes along.
And I was going to bring that up. We would be happy to put a palette together, but we're going to try to do it as one project because the buildings all, are together. And the other building is going to be a challenge just in the paint scheme. So we will supply that to the board to have a look and have a say on that when we
Okay.
get to that point.
And as a real minor point, I really like the 2/2 windows. I think I'd prefer to see the 2/2 windows where you have 4/4 to match the rest of the building, but it's a pretty minor point.
Okay, yeah.
And a centered front door instead of the offset with the side light on either side. But again, a pretty minor point.
I'm kind of partial to learning how to ride my bike in that parking lot, and to see it go away is going to break my heart.
Want to leave us asphalt?
Yeah, can I get a chunk of asphalt? Yeah, I think this is an awesome project. Maya, I can't thank your group enough for what they've done with the old brewery, and of course, it would have been old brick on the face if there weren't structural issues that were created probably in the 60s with that I-beam or whatever it was in there, which I like the look of the old brick, but unless you don't know it's old brick, and then use the same product over at the hub. So I think that's great. The metal roof, I think, is great. Now, in a perfect world, the little roofs where it's got the corrugated metal, if you could only get more of those shingles from Stewart. I know there's only 1,101 pallet, but they're expensive.
We bought every last shingle. We have them sitting in a storage shed, but there are only a little over 1,000.
Right. So I saw him in his driveway. Another thing is, if you have problems with the planning commission and the variance, it would not break my heart if there wasn't a garage door on Telegraph Street or Nevada Street. If you did it all on the inside, the garage building where you have the two doors facing the north, that's, they're kind of hidden. But the theme of not seeing garage doors, I think that would be great. But that's negligible. If they want a 20-foot apron in the front, that might be a good solution to do that. As far as carriage house doors being metal, the ones I put on my project in 2006 are metal. They face the east. The paint's not even chipping on them or anything, and there's some wood overlay the kind of gives it the cross members that makes it look like the old door. That's all painted wood, and that hasn't had any problems with the exposure at all. The man door that I have on the west side, of course, that takes a beating, and your south side stuff's going to take a real beating as well. On the I guess I want to call it brick, but on the cultured stone or whatever it is that we're calling it these days on the outside, I would really like to see that in like a sandstone or a granite, just so it looks like it could have been a natural material that came from here.
Sure.
I mean, you look at a lot of the foundations, they're sandstone, but you look at the Laxalt building, and that's granite. And the curb outside on the south side of the Laxalt building, the granite curbing's still in there. And I have sandstone curbing, but maybe something like that. I really like the red brick, but I guess there could be a fear of overdoing red brick.
Right.
And like we were talking earlier, a lot of the old commercial buildings were red brick. And most houses used red bricks and chimneys and maybe porches and steps and things like that, but the most of it was sandstone and the shiplap. But I think it's a great project. I think the driveway aprons could be a possible problem, but if you moved them on the inside and put some more greenery where people are walking down the sidewalk and things like that would be great.
Can
And
I address that just for a minute, just to answer your question? And we've talked about this over with other projects in the neighborhood, especially ones that have the garages close to the, or over the property line. We could put the aprons, the 20-foot aprons, and pull that building back, but that invites people parking in front of their garage instead of in their garage, which then now you have parking and cars out on the street, which is what we were trying to reduce, is that visual car exchange. One of the requirements, if we were to just do this as a parking lot, would be we'd have to screen the vehicles from the street. So my idea is to mix these things up so you get a little of both, but not a lot of one, and you push those a little closer to the street, you force people to park in the garage or not at all. And that way you don't have cars out on that street perimeter, which is kind of the goal. Our goal is to it makes it more pedestrian friendly that way.
I just think doing the 7-bay garages on the Nevada Street side where you're kind of going from the district to the old houses up to the 3-story building in the commercial district. I think that's a great barrier in between the district and that ugly building that I knew as Union Federal. And, like Don said, the turret kind of structure emulates what Dr. Gibbons did down on 5th and Division Street.
Yeah, it's a nice way to kind of turn the corner.
So it kind of brings
just to answer
together.
that other question, these two garage doors that face west, the only reason they're facing that way instead of on the back side is because I have to put dumpsters for the
I saw
retail and
that
for
in
the
your
things, and
in your rendition.
I'd rather look at the garage doors facing the street than the dumpsters.
Great.
So,
I know this will come up, and ultimately planning will deal with this. So I'm going to keep my comments just to the look of the building. And just a little on the driveways. I know what you're trying to do with the driveways at 10 feet. People won't park them, and what we'll do is it'll create more of a walking avenue with cars not there in that district, where we've got the telegraph square. And I liked what he'd done there. The other thing, and I hope that planning will allow that 10 feet, because what you're talking about, Jed, is when we're looking from the street at the building. But we also need to take a look at the building that they're going to create where the old bank is. And those people from that view are going to be looking at a sea of garage doors. So I think what Rob's been able to do here is he's created a rhythm, where we've got a little in and a little out. We're going to create more pedestrian walkway area instead of just a sidewalk. We're going to add 10 more feet to that, which might be able to use during some type of events. And I like that approach. I like the rhythm of the garage doors instead of on the inside, which we would see coming up the sidewalk from different angles too, or the outdoor restaurant that they have. I'd hate to see it look like, here's the store all. How do I rent one of those? I just think it's a bad look. So I kind of commend Rob with what he did with the rhythm of the garage doors and how he's created more of a carriage look with that building. So I really support it, and I hope planning will allow that 10-foot driveway. I think it's going to be important for him. And I like the garage. I like the garage better than I like the apartment.
So Don, with that being said, looking on this east elevation here, because this is the side that they'll be looking at, whether they're on the first, second, or third floor, do you think that it might help a little bit in changing that from more of a carriage? Maybe put a window in each of the ends between the corner and the man door? Is that?
Not from a construction side, but from a design standpoint, they're garages, they're in a downtown area. You have a security issue. I like what he's done there. I think that's the type of thing that you would see, even if they were built 100 years ago. You're going to try to secure those. I mean, look at some of the older garages. I went to the neighborhood, and we're not going to find any windows in those garages. They might stick one in a door that had a blind or something on it. But again, I really wanted to come in here and beat Rob up. I was going to look at this with great enjoyment, but I can't. He's done a really, really good job, and I really like what he's done with that garage. I think it's going to be a little jewel sitting down there, because remember, we tend to focus on the street when I'm gonna see in my car, but we're gonna have what they're trying to do, live, work, play. That's what we've been after forever. I love these kind of projects, and they're going to see that inside. That restaurant that sits to the south, I'm gonna be sitting there and I'm gonna look at this elevation, and if I saw 7 garage doors, I wouldn't like that. I like what I see there. So,
Can I add one thought, and those two large walls that might have windows or not, and it's a good argument to say, why put a access? But then give it some good thought in terms of what can we do externally, decoratively, plants or otherwise, to break up those big solid
Can I
walls. Break them up, because folks are going to look at them, so break them up.
This wall that's right here you're talking about, there's gonna be.
The other end too, really.
Yeah, this one's gonna have the dumpsters in front of it. So we're gonna have a screen gate and wall
Yeah.
there. So that kind of kills that wall.
Okay, okay.
The south
Decorative
wall,
dumpster.
The south wall here
Right.
on this garage, which is this end, that faces the big transformers that are on the stilts that are kind of ugly. This would be the only place really that you would be talking about might work. But these two windows that face Nevada Street, I can envision that we're going to be putting a metal grate on the inside of those, or bars to make them safe so people don't break in to garages. And Don was right, that's why we don't have more, because of the security factor of having a window in a secured garage that is in a high-traffic area, public area, so.
Well, I think that, I've got 6 windows in my garage, but what I think this whole project's gonna do, hopefully you don't have to bar the windows or anything like that, but I think what this project's gonna really do is get more people downtown and more life downtown, where it's not pitch dark, where people are afraid to be in that corner of that little, 3 or 4 blocks. And I think that security is gonna be less of an issue because there's gonna be more people, and with the whole intent of what you guys are trying to do, I think that's just absolutely great, so, if planning lets you do the 10-foot doors, I understand your approach there. It's just, I think the faux rock, if it was like a sandstone looking product or granite, I think I'd be happy. I think the whole thing, really, obviously, you've spent a lot of time on it and you've thought it out. And both of us growing up here, I mean, it's going to be a vast improvement to what we've seen our whole lives. So, any other commissioner comments or questions? Any public comment?
I think we're good.
Okay, with that, I'd like to entertain a motion.
I move to approve HRC-15-044, a request from Robert Darney, property owner, Adams 308 North Corey LLC, to allow construction of a 2-story duplex with 3 single-car garages and a building of 7 single-car garages within the historic district on property zone downtown, mixed-use and residential office located at 308 North Curry Street, APN 003-228-01, based on the Secretary of the Interior Standards and Guidelines, Carson City Historic District Guidelines, and with Historic Resource Commission policies, and subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report. Can I add that we're in support of the 10-foot? And I'd also like to amend that and say that we are in support of the 10-foot driveway so that the 1-story garage can remain as it is, and then the ones that are facing Telegraph can remain as designed by the architect.
Okay. I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, motion second. Any comment on the motion? Any public comment on the motion? Okay, let's take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thanks for having your heart in Carson City, Maya, and thank everybody, and good luck, and I can't wait till this is done. This is really, really, really exciting for me, as you know.
It's going to change Carson City.
Absolutely, change our downtown. There's a reason I live 5 blocks away from this. So anyway, on to item F3, HRC 15-045, for possible action to approve a request from Prestige Care, Inc., owner Carson City Hospital, for landscape improvements within the historic district for a previously approved special use permit, SUP-14-162, on property zoned MFA multiple family apartment located at 101 Mountain Street, APN 001-201-34. Mr. Plemmel.
Thank you. This is a portion of a property, again, that's located within the historic district, and a portion of a larger project that's located within the historic district. And I have a site plan later on here that shows kind of the whole development, but this is a care facility located at what's known as the former Carson City Hospital site. This particular property is off Washington Street. The site goes up to Mountain Street and over to Minnesota Street. The historic district follows the line running east and west for the buildings fronting on Washington Street, and it's the portion, that darker shaded portion on the vicinity map there, that is the portion of the property within the historic district. Moving in, just showing the aerial, here's what's there now, and it's part of this property that goes back farther. Okay, there's the north arrow on there. Little. It's Washington Street's on the bottom there, Mountain Street to the left, and it's just kind of, it's this existing really vacant property between buildings there that you see now when you're driving on Washington Street, and it's that portion of the property that's going to be landscaped and just be a garden as part of the memory care facility that's associated with it. Again, just a couple pictures here real quick. There's some larger trees on the site that they're going to retain as determined when to be healthy and not a safety risk. And there's some additional landscaping that they'll be doing. Again, just looking from the existing sites between the buildings, this area, and from the street there, looking back towards the project site. So it's back behind that existing fence there would be where the new development's occurring, with this portion in front of that being the portion at the bottom of the screen there. So this is the overall site plan, looking at that, going back to this is the total parcel. Again, the portion that's in the district is this southern portion of the overall project and property, where they're going to have this landscaping and garden area. Washington Street's at the bottom, Mountain Street comes up to the left side here, and there's access to the facility off Mountain Street and from Washington Street here. So per the historic development standards, landscaping is, and maintaining the landscaping as part of the district is part of within your purview. That's why that's being brought to you. The applicable sections relating to landscaping are in there in the staff report for your review. This up there now, zoom into this. This zooms into their landscape plan as proposed as it relates to the property. And I would note that Chris Baker is here from Manhart Consulting representing the applicant for this, and I'll conclude with that and be happy to answer questions.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions for staff? Chris, would you like to come forward and talk? Want to ask Chris, or you want to ask Lee?
For the record, Chris Baker, Manhart Consulting, here on behalf of the applicant. Really, Lee did a great job kind of summarizing this. I mean, it is what it is. It's meant to complement the building that was approved via the special use permit process to the north. Really, it's going to be a walking garden. The trail there's a decomposed granite. We've got some traditional landscaping immediately adjacent to Washington Street, and then what you see there in the green, and then everything there in the yellow is meant to be a drought-tolerant stuff. I would like to point out kind of reiterate what Lee said. Our goal is to keep the trees. I think they're, kind of a vital part of the community there. Obviously, we're going to have them looked at, and proper maintenance is going to be done. Obviously, if there's a safety hazard, we're going to have to do what we have to do. But, our goal is to keep them and work around them the best we can. So I do have one question. Really, the only thing that we're constructing in there above and beyond adding some landscaping in the trail is a wrought iron fence. I understand the standard is no higher than 4 feet. I guess I'd kind of we haven't designed anything at this point. I'd like to maybe hear your comments, and maybe if you could direct me to something that maybe is existing in the community that you'd like us to mimic, that'd be helpful.
So let me ask you this question. So the wrought iron fence, is that going to be proposed on Washington Street, just off the sidewalk?
You can actually see it right there. It splits the traditional landscaping
That curve.
from the drought-tolerant landscaping.
Okay, so if we want to access that, we have to go from the parking lot from Treadway Park, or, I'm just teasing you.
If you,
Um,
yeah,
it's-
well,
it's-
it's only
it's-
4 feet, so.
It's
yeah.
only 4 feet, but it's just that north, it's just that east to west portion, right, that's going to be a fence, or are you going to fence in the whole lot?
Well, right now, it's just proposed to be that, right along the frontage there.
Okay. I guess I have a question for anybody watching TV out there. The lower left-hand corner of this parcel, right next to that lower left-hand corner, there's a monument. And it was put there honoring Aaron Treadway and Treadway's Park and the military encampment that was there. And it was placed by, I'm not sure if it was the Carson City Historic Commission, but Gus Bundy, Victor Goodwin, Betty Block, a few other people were instrumental in putting that monument there, and it's disappeared. And so there was a number of them that they did from the centennial, bicentennial. So if anybody knows anything about that, please call planning. So maybe we can get that. Chris, when you go by there, it's probably about 3 feet high, and it's got a sandstone base and red brick on it, and it's kind of angled. And
Okay.
I think it's on city right-of-way, but I've been trying to find that or what the verbiage was since
So
between.
the plaque
16
itself is missing that was on the?
Yeah, it's probably about 30 inches by 30 inches square.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
There's another plaque just like it in front of the Episcopal Church, and I think they put about 4 of them in town during the bicentennial era.
Do you know when the last time it was on site?
I haven't seen it for probably about 10 years.
Oh.
I know when Pat Drudge brought the property, he was looking for it as well. So if it ends up in the city yard or somebody's basement, if you can
Well,
come forward with it, that would be awesome.
It would be a great compliment to the site if we could get it back.
And it's also my understanding that those big cottonwood trees on there were planted by Aaron Treadway, probably approximately about 100 to 125 years ago. And when you go up west on Washington Street, some of the more recent cuts in the last 5 years, I counted in excess of 120 rings. So, I mean, yeah, I think saving those trees, I really appreciate your efforts in doing that and what can be saved. Because, of course, we have a tree that's about 200 years old, that's cottonwood down on Washington and Division Street. So we're doing everything to save that, so hopefully these can be saved as well. Thank you very much. Don, you have comments?
I like it. It's a nice improvement to that vacant lot that's been there for so long. I think that's nice. It's going to be a nice addition down there.
I really like the way that you did the traditional landscaping right along Washington before you jump into the drought tolerant. I think that'll be a nice complement to the neighborhood. Is there ever any plan to put a sidewalk along that stretch?
Yeah, I think that is a condition of approval
Okay.
of our special use permit. So
Okay.
you will see something there.
Good, because it's always hard to walk down that
Well,
section of street. You got to jump in the
Problem solved.
street. Okay.
Well, at least for that small portion.
Let me make one more suggestion on that same front. When you do find out about that take a look. It might be worth looking at that monument, because it might be a nice spot to bow out the sidewalk so that people
Okay.
can walk up to it.
Absolutely.
It's right up.
So I don't think it's right up to the
Yeah, I think
sidewalk.
there's,
It
look,
needs to slope back.
as you can see in the aerial, there is actually a sidewalk on both sides already. So we're gonna make that connection.
No, I can see it.
Yeah, it's set back about 4 feet from the sidewalk, I think. Anyway, it's just something to look at.
Okay.
I think it's a great project. I don't think anything's been there since, I think the stuff got torn down in the early 80s, maybe late 70s, early 80s. I think there was a couple other houses in that row.
Yeah, and there was
But,
a few, different iterations where there were actually buildings proposed on that site, in combination with the stuff to the north. But, I think a lot of that probably would have not been able to preserve the trees. And I think, when we were laying out the original site to the north, it was kind of important, I think, to blend in with what was there. And we needed some sort of outdoor space anyway, so it was half created for us already. So we wanted to just kind of complement that.
Very cool. Any other comments or questions? Any public comments on this issue? See, Mr. Plemmel?
Actually, I should have noted as part of my presentation, you do have some late information that's public comment. It was an email received from adjacent landowner Keegan Lowe. who owns property at 907 and 911 through 917 Mountain Street. And he did say he was curious about when the construction was going to start, but I saw in here support. He wants to voice his support of the landscaping and prestige development project. So I just want to note that for the record.
Yeah, and I actually did have a conversation with Mr. Lowe today, and we kind of discussed the project as a whole, and yeah, he's the property there immediately, I guess, to the west. I think where the building that has been raised immediately west of that. So we had a conversation, and I answered some of the questions he had, and he did want to voice his support.
Great.
We didn't really answer your question about what kind of fence you should look at.
No, yeah, that would.
Do we want to?
I think the best thing, if you could just kind of I know you don't have a standard detail, but if you could direct me to something maybe in town that is similar to what you'd like to see. I don't know if you want something with pilasters. I don't know if you want a strict wrought iron all the way across, but, we're open to suggestions.
Let me, I'll toss my
Something
2
really
cents.
expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think simple. Keep it simple. It's kind of background for the natural landscaping, set back just a little bit from the street to kind of separate. And I don't think you want to make it too fancy.
Okay.
And-
Just a
and
simple
It just
black
wants to
wrought
be
iron fence?
yeah, I think so. That's my personal opinion.
And if you want to see some examples, there's a fence at 412 North Nevada Street. It's a brown and I guess a mustard color and brown. And that fence isn't original to the property. It came from Boston, and it's a pretty simple wrought iron that they put on the curbing and all that stuff.
Okay.
And of course you have the state capitol, but there's another one that looks pretty good over at, it would be 212 North Division Street, where
Okay.
it's the north end of the Methodist Church, and they have an old wrought iron fence there. And then there's a wrought iron fence that you probably wouldn't want to do in front of my office at the corner of Curry and Musser. It's about, I think it's about 18 inches, 20 inches tall, and it's fairly ornate, but, something in that 3 to 4 foot range, you can just drive around the district, and,
Okay.
if it wasn't just a square metal industrial commercial wrought iron fence, I think I'd be pretty happy about that.
Okay, perfect.
But I do like simple. Okay. With that said, no public comment. I'd like to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve request from Prestige Care, Inc., owner Carson Tahoe Hospital, for landscape improvements within the historic district for a previously approved special use permit on property zone MFA located at 1001 Mountain Street, with all the conditions and recommendations from staff included.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Any public comment on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much for your presentation, sir. Now on to item F4, HRC 13-131, discussion only regarding an update of the 2014 Historic Preservation Fund HPF grant project. Mr. Plemmel.
Okay, thank you. I'll go through this update for you. I did have, spoke with Janice today and had her write up something for me as to an update. She's been the one doing the grant management and working with Susan on this. And up there on the screen is the cover page from the draft architectural inventory of the Nevada State Prison that we're using the Historic Preservation Fund grant for. Just for a quick update on that, in April, we contracted with ASM affiliates to complete this resource inventory. That's now, the draft is done. The results of the survey will be used to identify specific property types and the distribution of historic properties and non-contributing resources within the Nevada State Prison Historic District proposed for the National Register of Historic Places. And they have submitted their draft Nevada State Prison Architecture, and this was submitted to yesterday to SHPO. Just a short summary of the report. A total of 32 architectural resources and 6 sites were identified. The architectural resources include 28 buildings and 4 structures. 27 of the architectural resources are recommended as contributing to the Nevada State Prison Historic District under Criteria A, as well as individual individually eligible for listing in the National Register of Historical Places. Criteria A is properties associated with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad pattern of our history. 5 of the architectural resources are recommended not eligible and non-contributing to the eligibility. Staff is going to be reviewing this report and compile comments by May 26th, after which the report will be submitted to SHPO for review. And that's an update under this item.
Awesome, thank you. And just so anybody out there knows, or everybody knows, the Chamber of Commerce is having their annual meeting, I think it's June 29th, out at the Nevada State Prison. So it might be a good opportunity to get a little tour, and they are starting to offer tours out there, so I think that's awesome. Okay, on to action G, staff reports. Planning Division staff report to the Historic Commission. Lee, do you have?
Yeah, just a couple things. That with that report, not much more, but I do want kind of a related item to the downtown item, or to the one project that's kind of near the downtown, and they've had a lot of talk about how we're trying to revitalize the downtown. So just an update on the Carson Street project that's going forward in the design. It was on April 20th, and I hope some of you were able to attend. I was actually out of town, but they had the design workshop where they had people in here and actually had keypads to vote on different kind of design themes. And kind of not surprisingly, what really rose to the top was a historic theme, and there was other transportation elements, and what was the other one? Capital elements. And even those everything kind of has historic themes in it when you think about kind of all of those things in Carson City. So the Loomis and Associates design team has taken the things from those workshops and is gonna work on what they call 30% design, but it's going to be a level of design that really shows a good picture to everybody of what the Carson Street will look like, and they're working towards doing that, towards 30% design, and having a public open house on Monday, June 22nd. So that's the next date to mark for your calendars to come down. It'll be here at the community center to come take a look at the plans and provide feedback on the designs at that time. So that's what I wanted to report, and that's all I have.
Okay, great. After that meeting in April, I met with Mike Bennett over at Loomis, and I gave him, I don't know, it's probably 900 pictures of Carson City throughout the years. So based on the historic notion to do all that, there was a lot of cool, interesting things. And when you're looking at some of these pictures, and you realize that when they took the parking off Main Street, they widened the drive lanes and just restriped, because Carson didn't have a whole lot of money back in 1954 or 56. So that was very cool. So the more people that participate in this process, the better the results I think are going to be. Do we have any commissioner reports or comments? Well, the only comment, and I'll do this for the people that are driving by my house, I went to fix my front porch, and I followed the rot, and now there is no front porch, and talked to the building official, and I'm good to go. And hopefully in the next week or so, it'll be completed with all new wood underneath it and repair all the posts. And then I'll probably be coming to the HRC here with an idea to brick underneath from the sandstone foundation to the base of the deck. So I'll be bringing that forward, even though there's no permit required. Any other comments? Future agenda items? Public comments. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak today? Seeing none, on to item I, action on adjournment.
Move for adjournment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment on the motion? Any public comment on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Oh, one last thing. The scavenger hunt for the Historic Resources Commission puts on a scavenger hunt. It's going on right now. Go to carson.org for your scavenger hunt. People are doing it on a daily basis, and they love it. And thanks, Commissioner Hayes, for what you've done. So have a nice evening.